Hey everyone, welcome back to the Promised Land podcast on a new YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to it. If you're listening to this on audio, please bear with me. This is a live broadcast that I'm going to be uploading to Spotify and to Apple. What I'm doing, I'm jumping online because I've just seen that Bruno Fernandes has been speaking on international duty with Portugal, speaking about the decision that he has made not to join Al-Hilal. All that money was on the he obviously has rejected the offer that came Tuesday morning. I have done a podcast about that already, and now we haven't had to wait too long for Bruno to actually talk about the situation, his reasons why he has rejected that offer. So I'm going to be getting into what he said on this podcast. Also, I have not spoken about Jadon Sancho just yet. He's been sent back to Manchester United by Chelsea, and simply put, whatever the hell happens next for Jadon Sancho. It's certainly something to talk about. United have a hell of a lot of work to do because I think I was expecting, really, I've gone over this and I went over this in the podcast about Bruno Fernandes that I initially did as well. I was expecting maybe Bruno Fernandes to end up leaving just simply because of the money. It was so massive. But he's obviously had his reasons and his justifications. There's a little bit of doubt about what he actually means by what he's saying. Like, he's kind of hinting that he wants to play at the highest level. We know that Manchester United are not playing in the Champions League, for example. But the Premier League is the highest, the best league in the world, so maybe that's what he means by it. There's a little bit of ambiguity in it, though, but I'm gonna be getting into whatever he has said. I'm gonna be reading through it for the benefit of those of you who are listening to this, and watching as well. If you're watching on YouTube, please, get in the comment section and throughout the show, I will look to we have a comment from Steve to start with. Hi, Scott. First time catching you live. Love your content. Thank you so much, man. Please stick with me. If you've got any, honestly, if you've got any questions, please fire them in. And in intervals, I will do my best to come back to those questions. And maybe there'll be some time towards the end of the recording as well for me to answer a few more questions if you do have them. There's certainly lots of questions that United have to answer themselves because, you know, where are they getting this money from? That's been the whole thing that's been floating around over the last couple of days since the Brian and Burmo news came in. Obviously, they have a deal to pick up there with Brentford, and the price for Brian and Burmo has gone from 50 all the way up to as much as 62.5 million already. It's incredibly funny how this works, isn't it? Brentford apparently not too happy with the way that United put themselves to the front of the line, maybe. Let's just say that with the leaks coming out. And there's a lot of annoyed supporters of other clubs as well. Newcastle and Aston Villa, I'm seeing plenty of that on the timeline as well. But yeah, I'll be getting into Bruno Fernandes and Jadon Sancho as well, and what Bruno has said and Jadon Sancho's decision, or Chelsea's decision to send him back or pay a 5 million penalty fee. Basic stuff. Anyway, I'll be around for a little while. If you've not done so already, please subscribe to this channel that you're watching on, the Promise Land Manchester United podcast. This is a new YouTube channel because I can go live, and I haven't been able to go live on the old YouTube channel, which has been going for a good few years. So I just bit the bullet and I've done it. Please subscribe. If you're listening to this on audio afterwards, please subscribe to that channel as well if you do ever want to catch me live, because this does come in video and audio. Well, I really appreciate if you could support wherever your favorite destination is. Jonathan Ball, thank you for coming across, John. I know you're very big on commenting on a lot of the things that I do. Really appreciate it. Hi, Scott. Great you're pushing on with things. Thanks so much. Ramit says, love the live shows. Fantastic. I need that kind of encouragement to keep going with these. Really appreciate it. And obviously, there's a lot of work to do. This is a brand new channel. There's not too many people on it at the moment. But I suppose the more live shows you do, hopefully, the more people will come across to it because that is how I consume content nowadays as well. I'm sure it's the same for plenty of people. But what I can also do on live streams, and for the benefit of you who are listening on audio as well, I will talk you through this. But we can look at sharing screens, which is massive. Anyway, here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the comments that Bruno Fernandes has made about rejecting the Al Hilal offer. This is a write up from the Athletic, which has been put together by Laurie Whitwell. But I think the quotes are freely available on social media. Thomas Watkin says, "Love your content, one of the best United content around. Also being Welsh is a plus." I agree. Yeah, being Welsh is a massive plus. Matthew Halstead as well. "If this is Ineos plan to win the title within 3 years comes true, or it's ambitious, does this include a 33 to 34-year-old Bruno?" I mean, look, he's contracted till 2027. I think they've got an option for a further year, which takes him up to 2028, which is 3 years away. He'd be 31. Oh, well, maybe. Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of doubt about his role currently, and whether he can actually do it. I think with the signings that have been made of, uh, Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo coming in, they look like the 2 number 10s that United are gonna be going with moving forward. And simply, I don't think Bruno's completely proven himself yet as one of those 2 deep players. So I think he's gonna have to adapt his game a little bit in order to become the kind of midfielder that Manchester United need in that position. And obviously, I think his physical side has never been the biggest thing about his game. If he can morph his game into becoming more of a deep line playmaker who cuts out some of the bad passes that he makes and retains the good passes that he makes, and yeah, right, right. For some reason, I just muted myself there, or some kind of problem. Let me know if you can hear me properly. But I think, can you guys hear me? For some reason, my mic was just muting itself on the software. Hopefully, you can still hear me, and hopefully, this is coming through. Anyway, right, what was I saying? And if please jump in the comments. If my mic does that again, please jump in the comments and tell me you're back. Suvit says you're back. So, like, I was doing this, and then I saw there was a little notification on my screen saying your mic has been unplugged. I've literally not moved it at all. So, fingers crossed, it doesn't do that anymore. Anyway, right, one more comment before we get into these quotes from Bruno Fernandes. Maybe this is the time you and Rob were thinking about originally. Just feels like a proper new start after so many false ones, or maybe I'm delusional. Hey, it's been a case of so many false starts that we've needed in the past and that we thought were there. It's, we'll see, man. We'll see. Look, I'm hopeful. I personally think that there's the reason why I'm more confident now is because there's different people in charge at United, and I think that's only really happened over the course of the last year. So, I think they didn't really have. I explained it on the recent podcast that I did as well. There was a bit of muddled thinking and maybe not properly meshed thinking with the people that were making the decisions last summer, and that's why Eric Ten Hag was kept, and that's why there was indecision over who the manager was and this kind of thing. So yeah, it is. Hopefully, this will be the start. And I think what I do think is United are making some signings which are promising, a little bit different from what they usually do. Hardworking players in the case of Mbeumo anyway. So we'll see how this goes. Right. Anyway, let's get into what has been said by Bruno Fernandes. Sorry, a little bit long there, but stick with me and keep the comments coming in. I'll do my best to get to them in certain intervals. Right, Bruno Fernandes' agent had flown to Saudi Arabia. We know that for negotiations, and according to sources with knowledge of the situation, the proposal was for 25 million a year, euros net, equivalent to triple his salary. While Al-Hilal, according to the Athletic anyway, was said to be prepared to pay 80 million quid. Obviously, that has been talked up in certain places as 100 million. I think a lot of people were hoping for something like 150, 120 million or whatever it was. And I did say that if Bruno had agreed to this move, then United should have tried to take as much money as they could out of that. But obviously, we're not crossing that point now. And what Bruno Fernandes has said, there was that possibility. The president of Al Hilal called me a month ago to ask. So it was on the table for a little while. There was a waiting period on my part to think about what the future would hold. I would be open to it if Manchester United felt it was my time. I spoke with Mr. Ruben Amorim, who really tried to talk me out of it. I spoke with the club, which wasn't willing to sell, only if I truly wanted to leave. We never talked about money. All that was handled by my agent, not me. I spoke with my family to understand if that was what I wanted for my future. It was actually my wife who asked me. I never said yes or no. She put my professional priorities ahead of everything else. It would have been an easy there's actually a hell of a lot more quotes than I actually knew. It would have been an easy move. I had Ruben Neves and Joao Cancelo there, 2 people I have great friendship with, but I want to stay at the highest level, play in big competitions because I still feel capable. I want to keep being happy. I'm still very passionate about this sport, and I'm happy with my decision. Uh, yeah, and then it goes into some Ruben Amorim quotes there. He's always been confident that Bruno would stay. So these are some really interesting quotes. And Jonathan Ball there says the figures being touted are mind-boggling. They absolutely are, and you can understand exactly why moves like this get thought about so strongly by players. It is life-changing money. Suvik says, "Agreed, Jonathan, but it is Ratcliffe or the Glazers, and unlike the Glazers, at least Ratcliffe won't take dividends and bleed that club dry." So I think that, yeah, there's more talk about the ownership there in the comment section. And like I think United are definitely for me, they have owners now, or they have people who are in charge of the footballing operation that actually want to win. And that is the most important thing. Anyway, let's get into these Bruno comments. So really interesting because he has said in at a point, and Florian Plettenberg has talked about this as well. He has said, or there's been some comments coming out saying that there was an opportunity. Obviously, I think we've run through all these already. Manchester United said they didn't need the money. That was the one I was looking for. Man United saying that they didn't need the money is really interesting because we know the PSR position that they have. We know the difficulty that they've had. We know the staffing cuts that they've made. We know the reasons behind that, and as bad as that has been over the course of the last year, I think they did that with cutting down operating costs in mind, and there's other players as well that United will have to sell. They will be a lot more difficult to sell than Bruno Fernandes. The likes of Jadon Sancho, I'll talk about in a little bit. Marcus Rashford, Anthony, who might have some interest. Luke Shaw, will Luke Shaw end up staying? I don't exactly know at the moment. Lots of questions to be answered, but if Bruno has said there, again, there was a waiting period on my part to think about what the future would hold. I'd be open to it if United said it was my time. I spoke with Amorim, who really tried to talk me out of it. So, look, there's concern about Bruno's position in this team and where he's gonna end up playing. But Amorim, both publicly and privately, has gone to bat for Bruno Fernandes and has shown that he really, really wants to keep him. So I look at Ruben Amorim and I think that he knows exactly what Manchester United need, and he said that multiple times himself as well. He knows what Manchester United need, and Manchester United now have to go about actioning getting those players in to make sure that Amorim has a team of players that, he can move forward with. With the 2 signings, as I've mentioned already, in Cunha and in Burma, we'll see how long that one takes because United will have to agree a fee with Newcastle, with Brentford, this kind of thing. Amorim has shown that he likes Bruno Fernandes in those deeper lying midfield positions. There's definitely some concerns about him playing in those positions, and I have cited my own concerns as well, and I'm not alone in that. I think what will be required here is Amorim to really work with Bruno Fernandes and to properly develop him into a deep lying playmaker. And some of the numbers that he has in terms of passes, I think he was really high for regains in possession last season as well, and really good, really promising. I do think sometimes he's a little bit careless with the ball, and I think that is a concern that a lot of people do have. He needs to potentially, he's at that age now where he's 30, 31. He needs to mature a little bit, calm down, and take. He has done it. He has done this really well under Amorim. He has been on the pitch as fiery as he is, as much as he likes to challenge referees and this kind of thing. He has also been a calming influence on the team, and you can see him calming other players and saying, "Slow the pace down, slow the tempo down." So I think he is the player that is Ruben Amorim's voice on the pitch. I think he's really embraced that, and simply put, he is the leader. He is the club captain. He is who else would be the club captain after Bruno Fernandes? That is a massive question. It would have left a massive leadership void. So I think I'll say this again: if Ruben Amorim sees Bruno Fernandes play one of these sixes or eights and it can work, not everybody's on board with this, but he has to do a job on making sure Bruno Fernandes is plays in that role, limiting his deficiencies and limiting the amount of times he gives the ball away and this kind of thing, and changing his game more akin to the likes of somebody with a shorter passing range who would control the game. You see those kind of midfielders a lot going and picking the ball up off the defense, firing it around, firing it long, firing it short, these kinds of things. I think he's got to improve in that perspective. Just coming back to what Bruno Fernandes has said here, Amarim's tried to talk me out of it. I spoke with a club which wasn't willing to sell only if I truly wanted to leave. We never talked about money that was handled by my agent. So he has said United didn't need the money. I think the messaging around United and how cash deficient they have been and how damaged on PSR they've been. It's it's United to go and say that they don't need this kind of money in order to do what they want to do over the summer. Maybe there's a little bit here of Manchester United playing the media game a little bit better than they have done previously. I don't know. They have really look, this ownership group have absolutely taken a battering over the last year or so for some decisions that they have made, which have been, you know, horrible. Horrible to live through, horrible to read about, horrible for a lot of people who've been involved in those cuts and this kind of thing. But they have always done it with and this was always the reason why, and the thing that I kept in mind while all this stuff was happening, even though it was horrible, is they are chopping they're making this a lean machine. Let's just say that. They're trying to make this as lean a an operation as possible. We all know that United had, I think that there was about 1,100 staff in United. They've cut about 450 jobs. On average, you're looking at about 400 to 700, 800 employees in a football club at a Premier League club. United's were massively over that. So they've only cut it down to normal levels. And, I think I don't know, I'm not a money guy, really. I'm not gonna come and tell you exactly how it works, but I think the message I'm getting from this is that Ineos feel like they've got enough money and cash and flexibility in PSR to go about operating with their transfer business, and maybe they have enough confidence in themselves that they can raise money from the likes of those players that I mentioned earlier over the course of this transfer window. Garnacho, Rashford, Antony, Jadon Sancho now who's back at Manchester United as well. There's lots and lots to digest, and I think the messaging from Bruno Fernandes is really quite interesting, and the messaging from United is quite interesting as well. And look, it's been 3 days in the transfer window so far. Matheus Cunha signed. Brian Mbeumo has chosen that he wants to join Manchester United on the second day of the transfer window, and on the third day of the transfer window, we've had this development of Bruno Fernandes wanting to stay at Manchester United. So there's lots to dig into. United need a hell of a lot more. They need a striker. They need a goalkeeper. For me, they need a goalkeeper. You got to put that right to the top of the agenda. I don't think United are going to do that, but you need an additional midfield partner to Bruno Fernandes. I think the Athletic have published as well that United potentially want to bring in another wing back. There's lots to do, a hell of a lot to do. So how United are in this position where they can turn down that kind of money because they don't need it is super interesting to me. Just gonna jump back into your comments for a second here. What do you make of wages being discussed for prospective signings and impact on our wage bill? I think I spoke about this a few times. I think if you look at United's wage structure at the moment, Bruno Fernandes is at the top of it. Casemiro is alongside it. I think Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro are among the top earners. When Marcus Rashford comes back as well, I think he will be pretty close to that. Your top earner has got to be your best player, really. And Bruno Fernandes is that. That's where you set your limit. I think everything underneath that, if like Casemiro, for example, I think we all knew when Casemiro was signed and when he came in that United would be at some point down the line, and we are at that point now, even though he had a good last few months of the season. that wage that he came in on would be a problem at some point because it would be difficult to shift if his performance levels drop, which they have. There's other players. Mason Mount's on 250 a week, I think. You've got Marcus Rashford around there. You've got Jadon Sancho around there. I think the wage bill really, I think for most players, it probably needs to move into the 150, for if they're in the first team. I think Lenny Yoro off the top of my head is about 120K a week. Uh, Other players like that, 115, 120. First team players, you really need to get to a point where you're looking at 150K a week. For your better players, your more extravagant players, maybe pushing 200, but that should be your ceiling. And Bruno Fernandes' contract, for me, is still a bit inflated, but obviously that's what they had to do at the time in order to get him to resign. But I'm okay with him being the highest earner because he is United's best player. They need to trim the fat off this squad. They need to. If you look at United's wages to revenue, I think they're still at like 55%. Really, the wage bill isn't that big a problem in that grand sense, but it is a problem in the sense of how much money they are wasting on players they can't use. That's the thing that needs to be addressed for me. Jonathan again says, "One thing I'm so glad we haven't got to think who is gonna be the new captain because I hadn't a blooming clue." There's, so much here to get. Honestly, thanks for your comments, guys. It's, Jonathan again saying, "I mean, Dorgu, Cunha, striker and Mbeumo Ahmad is an amazing forward line with Bruno crashing behind him." It is, yeah, and, this is a good sign for United. I think if the way that it looks now, and I spoke about this on a recent podcast, it looks like Ahmad is going to be the right wing back. And really, if United are playing the way that Ruben Amorim wants to play, Ahmad is going to be that player that is effectively, he's not a wing back, he's a winger. Ruben Amorim wants to play with wingers, not wing backs. He referred to them consistently as wingers. They need to be playing much higher up the pitch than they have been doing. The problem that he's faced a lot of the time is that he was playing fullbacks in those wing back positions who don't have that kind of attacking position, the technical skill to create chances, the technical skill to beat players, this kind of thing. So I think United, not surprised that they're looking at those wing back positions and trying to look at, you know, improving those areas. With Diego Leon who's coming in, Ahmad is obviously going to be one of those players now as well. I think he can still play in the 10, obviously. Bruno can still play in the 10 as well, but there's lots going on. And just checking some messages, 1 second. Before I get into this Jadon Sancho stuff, I'll do that in just a second, I think. But any further comments on Bruno Fernandes, please get them in and let me know what you think. But look, I think overall, this Bruno thing is. I'm glad the saga is over. Maybe I'll touch on this. He has said once more that he wants to play at the highest level. Do you think there's any ambiguity in what he's saying? It's to me the highest level and what people think of the highest level. They don't really associate Man United with that currently. But the highest level in terms of league football is the Premier League, and I have had this thought a few times that, and look, I might be thinking completely out of the box here and completely out of line, but Man United are one of, I think there's 9 teams in the Premier League who are playing European football next season. So if United can get the energy right, it can get the team to the correct physical level that Amorim wants to play, they don't have those matches to worry about. And this is where during next season it could potentially flip in United's direction. If they said, or if they were playing in Europe, obviously they'd have to stretch this squad a lot farther. There'd have to be more players in the squad and all these kinds of things. But it could be an advantage. It really could be. If Amorim is to get his team playing the kind of football that he wants to play, United could potentially, if they hit a good run of form and things start to click, then they hold that advantage. So a lot of people have thought United are just going to get relegated. United are just going to get relegated. But I said it on a podcast that I did earlier. I think United conceded 40 last season. The problem was that they weren't scoring enough goals and creating enough chances. They've addressed or tried to address two of the most important positions on the pitch in terms of addressing that the first 2 days of the transfer. We know they need a striker as well. I think they'll end up getting a striker as well. So let's see what happens there. But if United start scoring more goals, then obviously the results are gonna change. And I did see Dan, who's a listener to this, I have seen he's messaged me today on Twitter saying that he has put a bet on United to win the league next season. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but 40-1, then you never know, do you? Like, it we have seen this kind of thing happen before, where teams have been absolutely terrible. I take this example again, Nottingham Forest a year ago was 17th in the Premier League. On the last day of the season, they were fighting to get in the Champions League with a team of players that are cast-offs from other clubs. Chelsea were out of Europe completely. They came in and, like, Conte came in, changed the formation around, got a tune out of the team, and won the league because they didn't have Europe. It is and maybe, like, Bruno Fernandes is talking about, uh, playing at the highest level. Potentially, he means, like, he United have convinced him that they can compete. Look, it's a long way away, but I'm just saying that I've seen crazy things happen, you know? And Subic there says Fabrizio's tweet left the door open for a European club to come in for him. It didn't really say he would stay, only that he wants to play at the top level, and that's true. That is true. I think there's complete validity to that, but who signs Bruno Fernandes for the type of money that Man United would actually consider selling him for? There is not I would be shocked if there is one club in Europe that will take Bruno Fernandes for 80 million quid, 30, 31 years old. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't think there will be a club out there that can offer Bruno Fernandes exactly what he people think he's suggesting he's looking. Bayern Munich potentially the only one, maybe, but even they don't go and spend that type of money on a player of this age, and they have Jamal Musiala. Lots of these things. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised. Anyway, let's jump in to Jadon Sancho because it is what a story, what a situation that United are in. Jonathan says Munich offered 100 million for Kane. They did, but again, like Harry Kane's kind of game is Harry Kane has made the difference for them. I think they occupy the same areas of the pitch. I would be shocked, honestly, if Bayern Munich came in with a bid like that for a guy at 30, 31 when they already have a guy that's 30, 31 leading their line. I'd be shocked. He'd be so good at Suvic says he'd be so good at Real Madrid with those speed demons they have as attackers. He would, but are they when did you last see Real Madrid put money up like that for a player of that age? Eden Hazard for me, and I think that they've learned a massive lesson with the Eden Hazard deal, which was an absolute disaster for them. They spent a lot of money on a player who's permanently injured. I'm not saying Bruno Fernandes will be permanently injured, but you have a very, very small window in order to get the success that people think that you can get Bruno Fernandes in your team at another club. If anything, the way that football's moving, it's that you spend your money on players with promise, and you develop them into your first team. Desiree Doué, for example, tho those kinds of players. Spend that extra bit of money to get that player in, you've got a player there that you raise the value of, that you have sell-on value for, you have no intention of selling them, but they can potentially develop to be the best players in the world who's completely fit for the modern game. I'd be really surprised. All right, Jadon Sancho is leaving Chelsea and being sent back to Manchester United. Chelsea are paying Manchester United 5 million quid to send Jadon Sancho back because Jadon Sancho did not agree personal terms with Chelsea. I did outline at the time, and I have over the last few weeks that that would probably be a sticking point. We know that Jadon Sancho's wages are massive, and Chelsea, I think, wanted him in the region of 100 to 110 to 150 a week, given his status in that squad. And it is just not. You'd really think here. The 5 million fee to send him back is essentially a loan fee. Like I think the way that it was structured, the fact that they rushed to get this deal through on deadline day, it was a late one. It looks like a penalty. It's a penalty fee, obviously, and I think people are looking at this as Chelsea are sending 5 million back to United in order to not. But they never paid a loan fee in the first place. So it really depends where you go at with this. But The optics of it are terrible. I mean, Jadon Sancho has literally been a part of a Chelsea team which has just got into the Champions League. He won the Conference League with them. He scored in that final. He has 1 year left on his contract with United. He has said, "I'm not going back to United." He has left the sourest taste with Manchester United's fans. There's no way he can come back, obviously, and it's not gonna happen. He just thought, like, I think he was a boyhood Chelsea fan, and the fact that you can't strike a deal with a club that have just qualified for the Champions League that require you to take a little bit of a wage cut, it is, look, I think Chelsea are looking at other targets as well. Maybe there was something in the role that Sancho would have played in this Chelsea team. You know, if they're looking at Jamie Bynoe-Gittins and Hugo Ekitike, these kinds of players, then maybe the role that they were offering him wasn't the first team role that he was looking for. But where else is he going to get the kind of money that Manchester United are gonna pay him? Saudi Arabia, maybe. It's been floated by Ben Jacobs today, that there's clubs from Saudi Arabia that are interested, and that would be the money maker, obviously, for him, and it would be probably the best option for United to end up selling him. The fact that they banked United, 5 million quid from this is, a big plus for them, and now they can hopefully go and demand that 25 million again, or a fee where they can make a little bit of profit on him. I'm not entirely sure. Um, but I think for me, is you look at Jadon Sancho there, and the fact that he's not been able to agree a deal with Chelsea because it would have required him taking a pay cut, is it doesn't reflect well at all. Whether his career has gone over the last few years, the way that he's ever since that, showdown with Erik ten Hag and the public call out, it's I think for me, there was always concerns about his attitude when he was at Manchester City and he forced that Dortmund move in the first place. Um, but it's just a real shame. From a perspective of a player who was so talented, the way that his career has panned out, he's only 25 years old. And I know that I'm not gonna nobody listening here is going to be particularly sympathetic towards Jadon Sancho, but this is a guy who was really talented at one point, and it has just not gone well for him at all. But Adam says, "Super unprofessional." I completely agree. He's not like, who's gonna take a chance on him now? And, I have seen that there's other clubs, potentially that wanna take him, but the kind of money that Sancho's gonna be expecting, I think he'll be a really difficult one to sell off. Maybe United feel like they can work some magic, and I'm sure that there'll be probably clubs in Italy that are interested. Borussia Dortmund are always rolling around, and I think I saw a report and a suggestion a few weeks ago that Dortmund weren't interested in bringing him back this time, even though they glazed him up after his spell with them last season. Maybe if they sell Bynoe-Gittins to Chelsea, maybe there's a bit of money that they can take, but again, what are they gonna pay the kind of wage that Jadon Sancho wants? Probably not. So where does he go? What does he end up doing? He certainly is. He's a Manchester United player again from June 30th, but he's certainly not coming back. Uh, Zubik says, "Can we interest Betis in another one of our 80 million wingers?" Look, it worked wonders for Anthony, didn't it? Really did. Uh, but, I just look at it and I think it's a shame for Jadon Sancho. It really is. But if you don't show the right desire to go and play football, and I think United have got into this situation where they paid a lot of players a lot of money, and obviously it makes players really difficult to get on. Um, Players are just gonna have to take that hit. If they wanna play football, if they wanna play football at the right level that they're looking at, the kind of money that United are paying these players ain't gonna be available elsewhere apart from Saudi Arabia. So we'll see what happens with him. Obviously, we'll see what develops. I'm sure there will be clubs that are interested in him. Adam again says, "Sancho knows that United have to loan him out again, he will still get his money." Potentially, but he's in the last year of his contract. I think United have to make I think they owe about 50,000,000, 15 million quid or so on the books in amortization over the last year of his contract. So in terms of the fee that they would make back, maybe you can look at something around 20 mil and just be done with it. Maybe there's a small profit you can make. But as Jonathan says, he probably just doesn't care. That's the sad thing, really. Um, yeah, I think United really have to look at. We know that well, United have told Bruno Fernandes they didn't need to sell him for that kind of money. So they don't need as much money as we were thinking. But United will have to sell really well this year. And for they need to trim the squad down. Obviously, I think if you're gonna be playing only Premier League games and domestic cup games in the FA Cup and the League Cup, and obviously you can get knocked out in those early rounds and not have those games at all and just have weekend matches. They're not gonna need a big squad. All that load on players in terms of the amount of minutes they're playing in matches will be minimized. I think Ruben Amorim should get to a point where he has a favorite 11 that we see week on week and that he rotates in and out, and players should understand their roles in the squad. They should understand the positions they're playing in the team. We should know what a Ruben Amorim first choice Man United team looks like in a good few weeks of the start of next season. But players around that, I'm going to take Chelsea's example again, and the clear out that they did a few years ago was and exiling some players left a bad taste. But it's like Enzo Maresca was absolutely he got stick for it at the time, but he was absolutely right to do what he did. And I think United need to be that cutthroat for me. That I think they really need to be very clear with the players that they have in their team and their squad. And even I'm even talking about here some players that have been playing for Man like Luke Shaw, really. I think he's on massive money. He's never really available. The messaging from him during the Europa League final, I thought was quite damaging. I don't and But the emotion that he showed, I think is completely respectable. But to say that players doubt whether they're good enough for United, if you've got that doubt creeping in, you can try and, as a coach it out with them. But I think you've got to rid yourself of that mentality, and sometimes the best way to rid yourself of that mentality is just to send players to get rid of them. For taking hits on certain contracts and this kind of thing, and paying players off. We'll see, but Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Anthony, Jamal Malacia, Christian Eriksen, and Victor Lindelof are leaving, obviously, and have already left. There's lots of players that United really need to find destinations for, and really, they could do with finding permanent deals for these players in order to work back into the pocket, cut back on amortization, cut back on wages that they have to commit over future seasons, and we'll see how they go. Trim that squad down and really make it like they have done with staffing, and make this a lean operation. Make this a lean operation that gets the best out of the players that are in that team and in the squad. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining me. And before I go, I will see if there's any other comments to kind of bring up. King Eric says, God, I'm late for the live. Sorry, man. It is. I wasn't even really. I do need to get into a habit of having a set time, a fixed time for lives. Um, If you have thoughts or you have a preference on any times that, you'd like me to go live, please comment on the video underneath this on the YouTube video, and let me know what you think of what is best. I'm still trying to work that out myself, and look, it's gonna be a busy summer. We've seen the first 3 days of the summer transfer window. We've seen United do a hell of a lot. There's always something to talk about, and maybe the evening ones, I think they're a little bit too late for me. I think I would prefer to wind down prior to 8 o'clock and whatever, and I'm very late for dinner and this kind of thing at the moment, so I'll have to shoot off soon, but yeah, let me know what fixed time you prefer. I've been thinking about doing mornings, been thinking about doing lates. Maybe it'll be both, I don't know, but, I really appreciate you guys joining me, honestly, and yeah, keep coming back and subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. Suvik, thanks, man. Cheers, Scott. Keep going, mate. Your podcast is one of my regulars, and yes, Jonathan, you will be seeing me a lot this summer, I would imagine. I haven't got I decided to take a plunge on doing this. And hopefully what I'm actually saying down the screen is actually coming across in the right way and I don't ramble on too much. I get to the point. Please hold me up on if I'm rambling. Let me know if I am, so I'll try and improve what I'm doing. But I think this is probably for me, the best And hopefully you guys like it. Subscribe to it. Subscribe to this channel because this will be the live channel. If you're on the other Promised Land channel, or if you're listening to this on Apple and Spotify, hopefully this has come out okay. And please subscribe to this channel, which the link will be in the description if you're listening on Spotify and Apple just after this. I'm going to upload the audio just after this. Rambling is part of being a YouTube streamer. That is a very good point. But sometimes I'm trying to get to a point where I'm doubling up what I'm telling you guys, chatting to you on live, and also making it viable if you're listening on audio and you're not part of that live stream. So I'm trying to find a way, and I know people do it. I know people do it. I just don't know how the experience will be. Hopefully people like it. Maybe I'll just upload this one as I go and get people's feedback. But if you're listening to this now on Apple and Spotify, please hit the subscribe button to this YouTube channel in the description of the show. If you've been watching along on YouTube, I'll probably be back at some point tomorrow as well to talk about whatever I'm seeing United do next. And I do try really not to fall into the trap of absolute nonsense transfer speculation. Hopefully, we'll have enough meat on the bone for what United are doing to talk about stuff each night and each day. But really appreciated you guys. Jonathan Suvic, King Eric, Adam, all of you who've dropped comments in. Thanks so much, guys, for joining me here. And please keep coming back and like the video as well if you've not done so already. I think I need to make sure that I'm good on that, and I tell people to like the video because it's super important because I need this channel to grow, and you know, I'll need to do a lot more lives and this kind of thing and build up momentum. But look, it's a pleasure to do this. Obviously, it's nice to talk to you guys, and thanks so much for watching. I better go now because I think my missus is going to come and go and eat dinner. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks everyone for watching. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Let me know in the comment section what you think will happen with Jadon Sancho, whether Bruno Fernandes is actually still going to leave and go and join a European club, all that kind of stuff. Follow me on social media at _Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. See you soon, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next time.